Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. On today's video I want to talk about, do these new solar generators, these lithium ion phosphate battery solar generators, are they good enough to replace the small gasoline generators you use on your farm or homestead? So let's dive into this. So if you've been with the channel for a while, you know that I use this Champion 2000 watt generator, use it all over the property where I don't have power, when I'm running power tools, running lights, doing those type of things. I think you've seen us run some saws, some basic power tools there. I've used it to run my big LED lights if I'm was cutting firewood in the dark in the snow. So that's always come in handy. But you know, the downside of that, of course, is keeping fuel in it. This one actually burns a little bit of oil, so it smokes quite a bit, and just the noise associated with it. But you may have also seen that I've recently purchased a Jackery 1000 solar generator to use to help with some of these things in lieu of using the generator. Well, the folks over at Bluetti decided they wanted to send me one of their units to try out and to kind of compare that against everything. So they sent me the EB70, which is a smaller of the units. It's a 700 watt unit, but it has a lot of the neat features that these solar generators do, and I'm going to get into those in a second to describe all the things that this EB70 has. So what is a solar generator? Well, really this is just a lithium ion phosphate battery bank with some nice controllers, obviously an inverter built into it, a lot of details. And I'm not going to get into the real technical specs of this. There's tons of reviews of guys way smarter than I am when it comes to electrical specs. And so I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights of some of the features. But really the key to all these solar generators, of course, is their charging and storage capacity. The fact that this can be charged in 3 different ways, either from a solar panel, from a 12-volt source, like I could plug it into my truck as I'm driving down the road, or I can just go ahead and plug it into a regular wall outlet and charge it up, then take it wherever, and I have 700 watt hours of power at my disposal. But one thing I've found that's neat about these things, they kind of play nicely together with one another. So if we come over here, where I have my Jackery solar panel, I can actually use one of the Jackery solar panels. I can't use tandem, just because of the way this is put together. But I can use one of my Jackery solar panels to actually charge this. So when I plugged this in just a second ago, when the sun was out, I was getting about 82 watts coming in to charge it. If you plug it into a wall outlet, of course, you're going to get charged much quicker. I think this EB700 can charge in about 3 to 4 hours. In the truck, 12 volt, low amperage going down the road, probably going to take twice as much time there. But they're really easy to charge and get going. And they come with all the necessary cables you need to do that, of course. You know, here's the solar connection, here is the truck connection, the 12 volt plug, and then of course the 110 outlet that I have inside the house that we'll show you here in a second. So when you see a lot of the marketing and a lot of the promotion of these things, it seems like it's a lot of yuppies or hip people using these solar generators to power their camp. You know, they're charging their iPhones, they're using their iMacs out on the beach. And yeah, it'll do all of that. Obviously, it has the opportunity to run consumer electronics for a very, very long time. You can charge stuff up all day long, even run small refrigerators, those type of things with it. But that's where it starts to tip over into where I'm the most intrigued about it. So as you know, on this farm, 100 acres, we're on the front, the very front of the 100 acres, and there's just a whole bunch of nothing back there. So no power, no plug-ins, and not a lot of sunlight at sometimes. So having one of these things to work remotely away from my power is very handy. So that's what I wanted to make sure it could do. And with this unit here, having 110, 120 AC, 700 watts, that's right at, I think, about 5.8 amps. So that's smaller power tools. I know I can run my reciprocating saw. Obviously not going to have a load on it here, but plug that guy right in. I know I can. That takes about 300 watts there. So technically I could run a tool like this for a couple hours on this charge if I was going to run the system completely down. So that's what I like about the Bluetti, the fact that it's small and compact. Obviously I can run my smaller tools, my circular saw, my reciprocating saw, my grinder, a drill if I need to. But some of my bigger power tools, like my chop saws and things like that, when we were up working on the chicken church, I couldn't run them because there's just too much of an amp draw. So there are some limitations there with this size unit. Now I know Bluetti makes much larger units. They They go up to the 2,000 watt, but then they also even have these whole house systems. So they've got a pretty extensive lineup. So here's where I think these units really shine, and that's back here in the back of the property at our retreat that we're trying to build, our off-grid retreat. So our plan in the near future is to start constructing some buildings back here. We're going to be doing an off-grid shower, bathhouse. We'll be doing a small cabin, some other camping platforms that we're going to have in our off-grid retreat. So I am, oh my goodness, almost a half mile away from any power source. And I've always had the 2,000 watt generator. So being back here so remotely, it's nice, you know, we're in the middle of the woods, to have maybe more quiet power source. And with the fact that there's a lot of tools available now that are battery powered, like my DeWalt saw, that's 12 volt battery, I can run that thing almost all day, especially since I have multiple batteries. And of course I can charge right here. And with the load that this requires to charge is minimal. You're looking at 28 watts. So this can charge all day. If I had the solar panel out on a sunny day, then of course I'm generating power as I'm using it, and it really comes in handy that way. So this spot right here is where our first cabin is going to sit. And actually in less than 2 weeks, we're going to have a piece of equipment back here flattening this off so we can get our site prep. So you may want to stick around to see that. But that's kind of the next phase of where I think these solar generators are going to come in real handy. Again, as we invite people to come out to use the retreat, to take advantage of our off-gridness, no cell service, no power, all those type of things, we know there's going to be some basic amenities we're going to want. We're going to want to run a small refrigerator. We're probably going to want to have some decorative lights, you know, kind of like those Edison lights you see hanging around all the time. Little features like that I think would be very handy to have. And of course, if somebody's here relaxing, and that's what we want, is people to come to the retreat to get away from all that, the last thing they want to hear is this god-awful generator noise going off in the background on a regular basis. So instead of putting a full solar battery bank in, if somebody's just coming for the weekend to use our retreat, then these solar generators possibly could take care of all that and be able to run quietly, tucked out of the way, maybe have a panel hooked up to them so they can recharge. But it'd be something that if I have 1 or 2 of these around, then I can take them back when the guest leaves, recharge them, and bring them back when the next guest comes to stay. So that's what excites me the most about Bluetti and some of those other generator options out there. So with this specific unit, the EB70, what does it come with? Well, Bluetti obviously makes it easy to carry, of course, got a carry handle. One thing I like about this that the other ones don't have, it has wireless charging on top, so 15 watt charging. So if you've got a mobile device or something that utilizes that, you can drop that down and charge it without any problems. But it has obviously your AC side, your DC side, and again, I'm not going to get into all the technical specs of what it has. You can look those up or see other videos. But 4 AC outlets, 2 with ground pins. DC side, of course, we have the standard cigarette lighter with a cover here. We've got 2 12 volt 10 amp DC pins, old school USB ports that are the 5 amp, 5 volts, and then the 100 watt smaller PD pins. The input that you get, of course, comes from your solar panel here, or your wall outlet, or your truck, or your vehicle, whatever you plug it into, but standard pin there. And that's why I like the fact that my Jackery solar panel can plug right in and provide voltage. Over here you have a security light or a safety light that's got multiple brightnesses, and then even has a flashing mode there. So another nice little feature. So my biggest challenge with this Bluetti, of course, is just keeping it clean, because as I said, in a lot of the marketing, you see people out and they're using it on their back porch, they're using it in all these nice clean settings, but out here in the woods, it can get dirty quick. So it doesn't clean up very easily. We've noticed that dust and dirt kind of stick to it pretty well, and it's tough to wipe down. But it is what it is, right? We're not going for sex appeal. The other thing that I find interesting and to me kind of a little annoying with the Bluetti is their 110 adapter, of course, has a big converter built into it with a fan, and that fan runs all the time. So when that thing's plugged into the wall, it runs non-stop. So the issue with that is if I would plug this in at night, let's say I'm going to plug it in before I go to bed so it'll be charged the next morning. When I plug that in, that fan starts running, and I think it's about 40 to 50 decibels. So it's not loud, but it's not quiet. It's definitely noticeable in a room. So when I had this plugged in the other night in the living room, I'm sitting there reading, it's like, okay, that's the noise you hear in the living room. So in that scenario, if it was all night, that fan's going to run all night. Even if this thing got fully charged in 3 hours, it's going to run until I unplug it. So I thought that was kind of weird. I thought that was kind of a drag that they do that there needs to be some sort of power sensing there, that fan would shut off when it doesn't have a load of charging or when it's fully charged. So I'm going to post some information below to this specific unit, but also check out their other units. The thing I'm intrigued about them, more so than Jackery, is the size of the units that they get to. They get to some pretty large units, and I'm pretty certain Jackery doesn't go above their 2,500 or their 5,000 watt system. But Bluetti has some systems that look like they could be whole house systems. Something I'm looking at, that if this retreat system really gets going well, where I have to run multiple appliances or even multiple cabins, is there an opportunity for me to use one of those components with some solar panels to really be a very compact, very efficient way of providing some basic power out here. I'm not going to be running dishwashers or anything like that, of course, but some basic power to multiple dwellings here on the retreat. So I'm going to put a link to that, to the EB70 and their website. Check those out. I think these are available on Amazon as well. This EB70 actually just came out here the last couple months, so it's a newer product. I know they just added on the LED display panel, they actually added percentages of the battery charge, so you can see those visuals. So they seem to be constantly updating and upgrading their features. So while I think these things are awesome, I don't think they're at the point yet where I can totally replace my 2,000 watt little inverter generator just yet for construction. It's not really that heavy. I think the equivalent, I'd be curious to see what the equivalent of that wattage in a Bluetti or the other generators would weigh, and just how easy it would be to tote around. So I'm not ready to get rid of the gas generator, but it sure is nice when I don't need to run heavy tools that I can resort to the Bluetti to be able to plug in my chargers, to plug in my small hand tools to be able to get stuff done when I'm nowhere near power. Well, comment below if you've used one of these generators, if you've had an experience with them. I'd like to get a dialogue going there about how technology has really advanced here recently with these lithium ion phosphate batteries packs, and just how potent they are when it comes to off-grid power. All right, take care everybody.